In the previous module, we introduced the deconstruct method that allows for the order to be deconstructed into local variables. A huge benefit of doing this work is because it's valuable when it comes to pattern matching. We can use what is known as the positional pattern. The pattern that you produce is built the same way as you'd define a tuple. The difference is that this group contains patterns. Let's say that you have the order. The class introduced the deconstruct method for two variables, the total and if it's ready to be shipped. This means you could take the order and match it against a positional pattern. Is the total the constant value of 100 and is it ready? Then we'll enter the if statement. Using the constant pattern for the total wouldn't be very flexible. I'd like to say that whenever the order is ready, despite what the total is, this should be a match. To do this, can you guess what to do? If you guessed using a discard, you are absolutely correct. To make it super clear what the second parameter is that needs to be true, you can use a named parameter. This makes it even easier to understand. This is just a very simple example of the positional pattern. It verifies the position of what is produced when deconstructing the object. If you're just using this to check one property value that you could access directly through the instance, this would have been a rather complex approach. I'd like to produce a string that represents the current status of the order, and we can do this inside the report generation that we built earlier. I'll introduce a local variable that will hold the order status. This will be a string when we are done. Based on the order and how it's deconstructed, we can now add multiple different positional patterns. First, if the total is more than 100, this is going to be considered high priority. Second, for any other order less than or equal to 100, if it's ready, we can return a string that tells us that the order is ready. Third, if it's not ready, we'll just say that. The default would only be reached if the order was null. In that case, we'd have a much bigger problem, and the code further down would fail anyways. Nevertheless, we'll add a case to handle this. We could throw an appropriate exception. The positional pattern requires a deconstruct method to be available, or that what you match on is a tuple, while the second parameter is a Boolean that comes out of the deconstruct method on the order. It may be the result of a complex calculation that wouldn't necessarily have been easy to do with normal property access. In terms of using the declaration pattern to capture variables, we have a few options. The positional pattern would allow you to use the var pattern to capture the value. This is just like the discard and specifies that any value is fine. But you'd like to use this value inside the expression. You can also declare a variable name after the positional pattern. What do you think this will contain? Will it be a tuple produced from what was deconstructed, or will it be the entire order? It will in fact be the entire order. Capturing this as a local variable lets you use it in the expression. As you see, the patterns are extremely flexible, and expressing yourself using patterns can make the code easier to understand. Another example of the positional pattern is to use it together with a tuple. Let's also add a shipping provider status to the report. Instead of using the order, we'll construct a tuple with a number of elements that we are interested in. This tuple will contain the shipping provider and the amount of items that are being shipped, as well as a Boolean that represents if it's ready to be shipped. We can now produce patterns using the positional pattern to check each of the different elements. For example, no matter the shipping provider, if the amount of items that are being shipped are more than 10, we need to divide this into multiple shipments, no matter if it's marked as ready or not. If this is the most important case, it needs to go on the top. For the Swedish Postal Service shipping provider, if it's just one item, we are going to require this to be picked up manually. For all other shipping providers and all other quantities of items that are less than or equal to 10 and being marked as ready for shipment, we'll just say that this can be shipped from the warehouse. We can now add a final positional pattern for the case when the order is not ready. This is in fact the same as adding a discard. Personally, I prefer to use the discard in this case. The positional pattern uses nested patterns to match the position of the element in either what was deconstructed or in the tuple. Remember, the position matters, hence the name of this pattern.